The title itself is already too controversial. You don't even need to add much.
Outwitting the Devil. Quite a controversial title to start with. So today we are reviewing a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, together with my great friend Andrew Mutua. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Karibu sana. So, as we start, tell me about the book first of all, before we go to the title. The author of the book, how did he end up writing the book?
So, this book, I actually didn't know about it. I know there's a famous title that I think most of you know that Napoleon Hill has written, and people make a lot of references from it. Think and Grow Rich,
right,
by Napoleon Hill, a book that he wrote in 1937 and published thereafter. But this one is a book that has been hidden all along.
Okay.
And it is only after 70 years. This is after Napoleon Hill and his wife had already passed on. That's when the family, through the foundation, the Napoleon Hill Foundation, they decided to release the manuscript and have it published and, released to the world.
Okay.
So and the reason why it had stayed hidden was, when first Napoleon Hill wrote it, that is in 1938, his wife didn't feel safe because they were being critical of certain institutions in our lives that are very prominent.
Okay.
So it's like hitting the core of like being critical of the government of the day. That is bound to bring a bit of a pushback, and that's why his wife felt they should still maintain it hidden. I think she didn't even want it to ever get published.
Okay.
But through Sharon Lecter, which you probably know, the co-founder of Poor Dad Rich Dad,
yeah,
through a publishing house, they were able to finally get it published and eventually released out to the world.
So, the book itself is quite controversial when you look at the title itself, Outwitting the Devil. And personally, I haven't heard of the book. I didn't hear about the book until you brought it up. And the title itself, from my own perspective, is like, it's quite a controversial title, which might be a marketing technique that you are using so that you get people to want to know what is it that is in this book and read. But at the same time, talking about the devil, it's not a common thing. It's not something that we do as a norm in the society. Only the devil comes in when we talk about God and the devil, and of course you're directed, let's go towards the Lord. Let's go towards God's way and avoid something to do with the devil. I don't know, from your perspective, the title itself, what would you say about it?
It's definitely a title. It either might attract you or it might repel you.
Okay.
And it might seem like it's a spiritual book, but it's not.
Right.
And I think Napoleon Hill, I would imagine that was his intention. I think he wanted to really poke a bit of stir up that fire of controversy around how we perceive the devil and what we see of him and that kind of a thing. So it's, as you say, many people will be gravitated to go towards God, which is how we should. And anything with the devil is like, no. For me, I also didn't know about it. It was through a video I was watching around identity shifting. And the person really brought home that aspect of how do we become the people we aspire to be. And he made a lot of reference to the book, and that's what attracted me to finally take it on and decide to read it and learn the lessons that Napoleon Hill has put in.
The plot itself for the book is him interrogating the devil.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is quite unheard of. Who is this guy who sits and interviews or interrogates the devils about the things that he does? So we'll go straight now. Let's look at some of the lessons that you're able to get from the book, right? So the lesson number one from just reviewing the book is that in life we spend most of our life either operating from fear or from faith. And the intention of the devil is for you to constantly be operating from the fear-based. That is a kind of life. And I think from what I've seen, even from the society, is that by default, we as human beings are operating from fear. We are told how not to do this.
Exactly.
Stop that, you will get bad. Stop that, you will get... So there's always that fear-based kind of thing. We do, I think from research and even from marketers, people are much willing to take action to avoid a bad thing rather than taking action towards a good thing. I don't know, what is your take? We by default come into this world as from fear-based.
I agree. I think we are a lot driven by fear.
Yeah.
Is it our default setting? I would argue it's not.
Okay.
I think, if you look at a baby or a child, mostly you'd see they'll be daring to do certain things. So I think our initial settings, if we talk of the configurations that God put in us, are not fear-based. They are faith-based.
Okay.
Fear becomes more prominent in our lives because of the programming or the conditionings that we get from how we live, from the schooling we go through, from the words we hear. Children are told, don't talk to strangers. Don't, as you say, it's a don't world. And no one tells somebody, you can try that. See how that goes, And that kind of, I think it's a more helpful approach instead of one where you're restricted to do things instead of, going forward towards what you want.
Okay, I'm just thinking of a whole industry. I have nothing against insurance, but I think the whole industry of insurance is perpetuated by fear. It's a fear-based kind of... I have insurance. I'm not saying I don't have insurance. I have insurance, education policy, probably health policy. And it is based that in case something happened, someone will take care of me. And when you think about it, I think we have been conditioned. Thinking about it, kids have no fear at some point. They will do some things without thinking about what will happen to me. So ask yourself, and I think it's also a moment for me to ask myself, in my day-to-day activities, am I driven by fear or am I driven by faith? And I think once you start operating from a faith point of view, from what I saw from the book, there's a lot of liberation. There's a lot of freedom that you realize. I shouldn't just be doing things because I'm afraid something will happen. I don't know if there's anything you would like to add in the aspect of operating from fear or faith.
So, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think we should just imagine in our lives that there are certain decisions we are holding back, or certain actions that we would, are you thinking of, probably quitting that job? Are you thinking of taking that big step? And of course, it's always important. And I think one of the 7 principles talks of caution, and I guess maybe to some degree why the idea of insurance comes into hand. It's always good to think of certain eventualities that are bound to happen in life. Plan for them, but don't let them not scare you from making certain decisions, because then again, you can do everything humanly possible, but there are certain things that are not within your control. So faith-based should be sort of how you should approach life and the decisions that you're supposed to make.
Lesson number 2, it talks about the devil seeks to make us permanent drifters, never getting around what we were meant to do in life. So there's the aspect of drifters and non-drifters. And just maybe you can define for us, when the devil talks about, or Napoleon Hill in the book talks about, the devil wants to make us drifters. And just maybe going back slightly, the book talks about the devil controls 98% of the population, and the 98% of the population are the so-called drifters. Who are these drifters? How do we define the drifters?
So in the book, he defines drifters as, the people who do little to no thinking of themselves.
Okay.
People who are controlled or influenced by circumstances outside of their mind.
Yeah.
And there are many of them in our life. Non-drifters are independent thinkers and tend to ensure that they control their minds, they control the thoughts that they have, that they question things, that they are not influenced by fear.
Yeah. And in the book, the devil shows or now says some of the different tools and schemes that he uses to make people drifters. And quite interesting, as I read the list, maybe we can take time and go through them. He talks about the devil uses the family, schools, marriages, jobs, money to make you a drifter. I was quite startled when I looked at marriages. I think that marriages are the initial idea of marriage is from God. But still the devil is able to use marriage to make people drifters. I want something like jobs. I think jobs are good. It's good to have a job. Actually, you cannot survive without a job. The Bible talks about he who does not work should not eat. But still the devil is able to squeeze in some bit of the job to make you a drifter. I don't know, how do you end up becoming a drifter in marriage, in school, in jobs?
I think I'll comment on schools. I would want you to comment on marriage, being the one who is married.
Okay, right.
in this conversation.
Okay.
I think in terms of schools, and he has actually dedicated a whole chapter to speak about education and religion.
Yeah.
He says, of course, schools are envisioned to, empower people, give us knowledge and make us to, begin exploring and problem solving and that kind of a thing. But he says, if we think of schools at the moment, the way they are constructed, they only teach to test you. They're only built to make people just memorize a set of facts.
Yeah.
He says that consumes all the time that students have to go take up in terms of their schooling, that they are never taught the things that will make them thrive in life.
Yeah.
In the list, I think there are like 2 or 3 pages of the things that they need to be taught. One of them is, of course, this aspect of financial literacy. People, again, should be taught about how they budget and use time.
Yeah.
We realize time is the most important asset in our own lives. But this kind of subjects are not taught in school. Goal setting and goal achievement.
Right.
Aspects around sex. I think we talk of sex education, but I think much of it is predicated on, abstinence and whatever, which I think creates a more of another, sort of attracts people to explore more.
Yeah.
But people are not taught in the proper function of sex, and how he talks of the aspect of how do you transmute that energy to help you even achieve bigger goals in your life. So there's a lot. He has listed a number of things. A lot of our schooling is just to ensure, okay, are you doing the revision papers to pass your KCPE, your KCSE, to get the highest grade in college, or is it to really acquire knowledge that then you can use out there to confront certain problems that we face in our society?
I think also when it talks about school, we are taught more to think about other people's ideas rather than how to think for ourselves.
Exactly.
So the system is meant to base our thinking about other people, and that is what I think the basic definition of a drifter: someone who does little or no thinking for themselves.
Let me actually add to that, because it's actually an idea that I had while I was just driving up here. And it's just this whole thing that they term it benchmarking.
Right.
So you look at the best practices out there, and you're supposed to benchmark yourself against those ideas. Now, is it a wrong thing to do? No. But a lot of us are just told to settle on those best practices. But who is producing the best practices for tomorrow? Because the best practices for yesterday won't confront the problems of tomorrow.
Correct.
And this is the whole thing of people need to think deeper, and because a lot of drifters, he says they are mentally lazy. And that is true.
you don't think. You don't think for yourself.
Yes, you don't think for yourself.
When it comes to marriage, he talks about being a drifter, you will be in a marriage setting whereby you don't actually look at how you build each other, how you combine these two forces or the two partners in the marriage to face forward and accomplish more. Rather, there is some sources of conflicts which comes in, and you're fighting over money, you're fighting over other things, children, where do you live, where do you school, and all this kind of stuff. So at the end of it, you are competing with each other. You're not actually thinking for yourself. You're just thinking in terms of what can I do to show that probably I'm superior, I have the say in the marriage, and it ends up being just partnership or conflict. But from a personal level, I came to learn that marriage is not actually a partnership of two. It's a union of three, because God is the initiator of the institution of marriage. And when you think about it, that you're not only the two of you, there is a third party, and whenever conflict arises between the husband and wife, it's always good to go back to the initiator. And of course, he's perfect in his will. He knows why he put the two of you together, and solve the conflict from that aspect. It becomes much easier. But the devil, from once he is being interrogated now here by Napoleon Hill, he wants to take that role of the third party and start bringing in these issues. When you look at it, even in marriage, the conflict is usually not necessarily about the money. It's not necessarily about where were you last night, but you feel inadequate. You feel like someone is taking advantage of you, and you still need to assert yourself.
So it becomes more of a competition instead of a partnership.
That is
that beats the purpose, because I would imagine the whole idea is the coming together of two, and I like that idea you just said, that there's a third partner there who is God, and him is not aligned to either. He's very neutral.
He's very neutral. That's very correct. Now, there's a bit about drifters that Napoleon Hill talks about, the hypnotic rhythm. I remember there's a book that we reviewed here lately called The Power of Habits, but this has a very big connection. Can you take us through that bit to the point where now it becomes a habit?
So he actually refers it as a natural law of hypnotic rhythm. And one thing that you'll actually pick out of the book is there are certain natural laws that we need to align ourselves with. So hypnotic rhythm comes when to make our thought habits permanent. So think about it. Every action that you do begins with a thought, which probably initiates a certain emotion or feeling, and then spurs you to either take on a certain action. For it to become permanent, hypnotic rhythm is applied, and that's when it becomes a behavior, a habit that later defines who you are, your character as a person. Now, you can use it for good or bad. You can use it to develop thought habits that are positive, or either develop thought habits that are negative. This is a natural law. It applies in anything that you do. So over time, if you start engaging in a particular vice, before you know it, it will become part of who you are. Could be engaging in smoking, alcoholism, all this, whatever the habit or behavior. This is now what we are referring to, the habit loop. The habit loop,
whereby you tend to do some things. When you're triggered by one thing, there's of course the reward you're trying to look up to. And I think there are so many tools that the devil used to make people drifters. As three of them were mentioned quite profoundly, and I thought maybe it's good to mention. He says the devil uses intentionally smoking, drinking, and sex just to make you a drifter, someone who doesn't really think for themselves. I remember this book written way back in 1938, where even scientifically we didn't have proof about the addictiveness of tobacco and such stuff. And he was able to bring it. So
yeah.
some of this is what we call the foundation truth. These are things that you can't make up. He was able to have a glimpse at it 1937, and we can see how true it is in our day-to-day lives today. Quite relevant. Finally, we can go through the last lesson, and in the last lesson in the book Outwitting the Devil, he talks about there are 7 principles which help us gain control, both mentally, spiritually, and physically, for us to have it talks about gain mental, spiritual, and physical freedom. 7 of them. We can just have maybe list them and dive into 3 because of time. So it talks about, these are the 7 principles. There is the definiteness of purpose. There is mastery over self, learning from adversity, controlling environmental influence. There's time, harmony, and caution. Maybe you can take us through the first bit, this principle of definiteness. Definiteness of purpose.
Yeah. So this one really relates to having intention.
Right.
I think we've spoken about this many a time. It is good these books are just reinforcing the same ideas, because it just shows there's alignment across the board.
Yeah.
We spoke of drifters. Typically we'll talk of, and these are terms that are spoken out there in more of the popular culture. Let's go with the flow. I'll go with the flow. And over time, people they don't have a direction. So definite of purpose is basically being very intentional about your life, being goal-oriented, being purpose-driven. Why are you going to school? And he says one of the reasons why some of the schooling system is broken is because it doesn't give a clear direction of what its purpose is and why it's and the purpose will be different for all the individuals in that school. So it's one to identify what their purpose is, what their skill sets are, what their talents are, and build towards those. So it's just having a sense of direction and being very clear. And he talks of, you can fall prey of procrastination, indecision. These are the techniques that the devil uses to then drift you away from being, very intentional, goal-oriented, or pursuing a particular direction. Yeah.
I really like the fact that when you don't have purpose, you end up being a drifter by default, because you are not thinking for yourself.
Yes.
And if you are clear about what you want, I think you will not be concerned much by going with the flow. We have this word trending. What is it that is trending? If you have a definite purpose, you will not be concerned by what is trending. You know what you're going for. Actually, this trend is a matter of you adopting other people thinking and ideas. The other thing I would maybe want us to take time is to the principle of learning from adversity. And adversity by itself is something that but we will have to go through adversity. There is no straight path to success. And it talks about failure is just failure. You decide, are you going to learn from it, or are you just going to let it stop you pursuing whatever you want to pursue? And failure, and I think there's a saying, for each and every adversity there is a seed of greater opportunity that comes with each and every adversity. So it is very important for you to understand you will find adversity, you will fail, and failure is just an indicator. It is a way of giving you feedback. When you're pursuing a project, there are certain milestones, there are certain indications that you are moving in the right direction. This one is working. And when you face failure, it's just feedback to tell you this one is not working, this one will not take you to where you want to go. And you make the decision. Should I let this failure stop me from pursuing what I want to pursue, or should I use it and learn and find what is the seed of opportunity that it came along with, right?
Yes.
So finally, controlling environmental influence. This is quite a big one. Yes, tell us about it.
So controlling environmental influences is all about the associations that you keep.
Right.
We've said before, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And this is important. You know, we are never taught to choose friends. Friends sort of come up based on where we live, where we work, or where we went to school. But we are never deliberate to identify a particular human being and say, no, I want to partner with that person. So you need to control your environment. And then it's also about the input sources that you have. Right. What kind of information are you going to be a trend follower, or are you going to be a trend setter?
Right.
Are you going to just be the person who will inform people of the latest news, or you be the one creating the news? Are you going to be consumed by social media, or are you going to create it for your benefit? It's all this information, you know, and you need to be very deliberate about the information sources that you consume. Are you always plugged into 24-hour news cycles, which are, you know, very fear-based actually?
Yeah.
And they don't promote, you know, very positive thinking. So it's that kind of thing, yeah.
I totally agree. It's very important for us to control our environment, our association, and what we allow in. We can take our mind is fed by what we see, by what we hear, and these are things that you have totally control over. We might not have control over what you breathe in and out, yeah, because of the environment. But feeding the mind, those two key things. Otherwise, thank you very much for helping me review this great book. We really appreciate also you watching through the whole video. It is a very interesting book. I highly advise get a copy and read. For everyone, thank you again. Please leave a comment. I would really appreciate if you also like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel Daniel Mutuku, and of course press the bell button so that you can get notification each and every time we release a new video. Otherwise, thank you very much, and see you next time as we review the next book,
Expert Secrets.
Yeah, we'll be looking at Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. This is a book that has just changed my life. Watch out for it. We're out.
See ya.